Welcome to Concussion Talk Podcast. My name is Nick Mercer. I write Concussion Talk, www.concussiontalk.com. This is episode 17 of Concussion Talk Podcast, and I will be talking to Sandhya and Swapna Mylabathula. They have done extensive research into concussions and have helped to draft a private member's bill for the Canadian Parliament, entitled A Comprehensive Strategy to Address Concussions Across Canada. The bill has already had its first reading in Parliament and is in the process of becoming legislation. I talked to them about the bill, their research, their speaking presentations, and their graduate studies, all focused on concussions. Okay, I'm talking to Sandhya and Swapna Mylabathula, and I will ask them now to introduce themselves and talk about what they're doing. So please, either one of you, go ahead.
Sure. Well, first we want to say to you, Nick, thanks for helping to bring awareness to this important issue. You're really an amazing advocate.
And thanks for inviting us to be on your podcast. We're honored to be a part of this. So we are Sandhya and Swapna. We are students at the University of Toronto. I'm Sandhya, and I'm a PhD student at the Faculty of Kinesiology and Physical Education at U of T, and I'm also a continuing fellow from the CIHR Strategic Training Program in Public Health Policy at U of T.
And I'm Swapna, and I am doing a combined degree. I'm doing an MD PhD, so that's medical school and graduate school together. Right now, I'm in the PhD portion of it, and I'm also doing research on concussion.
So we're both sort of advocates for concussion awareness, policy, and generally improving the quality of life for those suffering from concussions, as well as their families and caregivers.
And we've had experience in concussion advocacy, policy, research, and education, including for sports organizations and in classrooms.
And we happen to be twins.
I wasn't sure of that. I saw there were pictures in the Brain Injury Canada newsletter, and I thought they're very close sisters, or they're twins.
Yeah.
So can you just expand what CIHR is?
Yeah, so that's one of the federal funding agencies, and it was just part of a program that's at U of T that I'm a continuing fellow in. Okay,
it stands for Canadian Institutes of Health Research.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and actually, now speaking of federal links, you worked with Dr. Kirsty Duncan in her Toronto office, right?
Yes, that's right.
And you developed a bill to present, a private member's bill to present to Parliament, and it's had its first reading already. Mm-hmm. And so just talk about the bill itself, what it is, and what its name is, and what it entails. What is the bill? What's in it? Why is it important?
Sure. So maybe we'll start with how we got involved.
Yeah.
With the bill.
So we had volunteered with our local constituency office, where Kirsty was our member of parliament. We volunteered there for a number of years, and we had the opportunity to develop policy in the form of a private member's bill proposal with Kirsty. And
so we noticed around that same time that there was increasing attention on headshots in major league sports, including in hockey. And hockey is our very favorite sport, so we were paying a lot of attention to that, and became really interested in this. We noticed a lot of players having to sit out because of concussion, and it was really intriguing to us. We wanted to learn more about it. And this, alongside our participation at school in sports medicine-related courses at U of T, together led us to choose to combine our passions in hockey and in policy to focus on concussion policy. So our proposal addresses improvements in awareness, prevention, diagnosis, and management for any Canadian of any age who suffers a concussion in a wide range of situations, from sports, where we started, to workplace injuries, to seniors' falls, to motor vehicle accidents, since we know that concussions can affect Canadians in sport, but also in a very wide range of situations.
And As you know, Nick, this type of mild traumatic brain injury is a very complex one. Concussions can elicit various symptoms, including neuropsychological, psychological, and social effects, and can even have economic impacts with absence from work or impaired return to play times. And the pathophysiology of concussions itself is not yet completely documented, as this is an evolving area of research. So we basically recognized the need for action to address these issues as much as we could.
And I mean, going back to the bill, we were really surprised to find that there was nothing policy-wise in place in Canada at that time, which was in 2010, when we started our work. And I mean, concussions are a serious injury with potentially really debilitating consequences. So we really felt something needed to be done to address them.
So you decided you try to write a private member's bill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what did you call it?
So it is called the Comprehensive Strategy to Address Concussion in Canada. And we started the whole process by doing thorough research into the state of the field at the time to address the gaps between what Canadians who suffer concussions and their families need and what was actually available.
And throughout this entire process, we had really, really valuable advice and guidance from our Member of Parliament, Dr. Kirsty Duncan, on our work in developing this policy.
And we were able to engage with a large variety of stakeholders from across the country and internationally in sport and beyond. As we mentioned, although we started in sport, we quickly realized that concussions can affect Canadians in a wide variety of contexts and situations, from transportation to the workplace and schools. So we worked to reflect the needs of all Canadians in our comprehensive strategy that became the Private Members Bill, sponsored by Kirsty. And as you mentioned, it's called a Comprehensive Strategy to Address Concussion in Canada.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just so your immediate research was mostly in policy to start with, helping Kirsty Duncan's, Dr. Duncan's office, mostly or is it more in science to start, or just a combination of both? Really, what happened. However, best way to get at the issues.
Yeah, I'd call it a combination. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And it led to the comprehensive strategy, which maybe we should let you know what that actually is.
What is the comprehensive strategy?
Because we've said it a few times. So the comprehensive strategy addresses, again, improvements in awareness, prevention, diagnosis, and management for any Canadian suffering from a concussion and their caregivers and families. And to achieve this, the policy involves a three-pronged approach, including one, a National Concussion Awareness Week, so that we can start with awareness and build from there. The second is a national concussion strategy with several points. For example, we called for the promotion of the use of concussion prevention measures for workers in high-risk industries as a component of existing vocational training.
So it was an iterative process where we developed our strategy based on the literature, but then revised it based on feedback we received from a variety of stakeholders in order to reflect their needs. Three components, as my sister mentioned, include the Awareness Week, the strategy, and the Center for Excellence.
So you said you want to use the guidelines for return to work. Do you have any idea what those would be? Is that like described in the bill, or is this an idea that you think others with more directed research would better to find out?
Right. So in terms of workplace, that was one of the examples for the second prong, which was the National Concussion Strategy. And this would really be at the workplace level, where it has to be specific to each workplace. Although there can be blanket guidelines that can cover all workplaces, how it's implemented has to be tailored to each workplace. But I mean, going again to all three components of the policy are designed to address concussions sustained in sport, in the workplace, as we were just discussing, on the road and at home, to better protect Canadians of all ages. And going back to the Awareness Week,
It's meant to promote education and awareness of the serious brain injury across the country. And the campaign would be dedicated to educating Canadians to enhance their understanding of concussions, including the symptoms, treatment, management, return to play, return to work, as you mentioned, return to school, protocols, and, of course, prevention.
Okay, actually, I'm going to ask you about your research first, but just to start off, you both did biology degrees at U of T?
Yes, so we did human biology and nutritional science in our undergrad. That's right.
Okay, good. And I did biology degree too, and there was I had a bunch of undergraduate, long graduate in 02, but there was no mention of, in my courses, I didn't do much human biology. Mostly I did physiology and anatomy, but as well I did biology, but I did those courses. But
That's
was
cool.
was there much note of mention of concussion or brain injury at all in your courses when you were doing it?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah, just around the same time that we had the opportunity to create this policy, we were enrolled in a course that was about sports medicine. It was the first time that we had started learning about concussion in one of our courses.
None of the other courses at that point had really touched on this issue, which I think highlights the fact that we need a lot more education and awareness about it.
And research.
Yeah, exactly. So your research continues now. Obviously you're doing your schoolwork. Is it in the same vein, or is it more directed towards brain chemistry or brain physiology? Is it more still policy related?
We're each doing a few different projects.
So basically it's kind of a mix of all of those things.
We like to be comprehensive.
Basically, in addition to the comprehensive research that we did to identify the gaps for the bill, which is continuing, we've both done and are continuing research in, as we mentioned, other areas of the concussion field, some of which we've also been able to present at some conferences and things. But these areas include different projects in sort of complementary and alternative medicine, sports psychology, and I've also done research in concussion prevention, education, baseline testing, and risk factors for my master's degree.
I'm Swapna. My current, I feel like I have to identify that. My current research involves two main projects. One of them is evaluating policy in Ontario that both my sister and I had the opportunity to consult on in the development of, and this is policy that is being implemented at the school level, and it's all about concussion policies at schools across Ontario, and we're evaluating that. And the second one, because I'm so passionate about hockey, I'm also involved in research about concussions in women's hockey with the Ontario Women's Hockey Association.
Okay. So you've mentioned that you presented all these and other findings at conferences and speaking presentations. So just can you give a brief overview of where you've spoken, what these conferences and speaking presentations, where they've been and what they've entailed. Like, so what type of conferences are they?
Sure. So the process for when we did the bill and continuing with that, it involved comprehensive research, which, as we said, involved consulting with various stakeholders, some of whom we met at these conferences. So we were able to travel to many regional, national, and international conferences to raise awareness for the bill. And we were honored to be invited to present at the Brain Injury Association of Canada conference on Prince Edward Island. And we were subsequently invited to speak at other events. We also spoke at the International Brain Injury Association World Congress on Brain Injury in Edinburgh, Scotland, where we were able to garner international support and interest, which was a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah.
And we will be presenting posters at the International Consensus Conference on Concussion in Sport in Berlin in the fall.
And
cool.
So go ahead.
I just said cool.
Oh, thanks. I'd say we presented our work at maybe on our policy, specifically at maybe around 20 conferences, and in our research generally about maybe 30. We really enjoy being able to share our work and learn from other researchers and stakeholders, and being able to provide tangible results with this policy that have the potential for real impact. And one of the really fun ones was a TEDx talk that we were fortunate to be asked to give, where we spoke to youth. And it was a really wonderful opportunity to share our work with youth specifically. It was a group that we hadn't yet reached directly at that point, and we were thrilled to see how enthusiastic they were about it. Some even approached us afterward to share that they were inspired to start their own advocacy journeys, so that was really neat. And during that experience, we were honored to share the stage with some of our country's most inspirational leaders, so that was really cool.
Oh, that is cool. Speaking of that, in September, you'll be speaking at the Brain Injury Canada Conference in Toronto.
That's right, yes.
And I'm hoping to be there as well and maybe do a podcast or two from there. So.
Oh, that'd be great. It'd be really nice to meet you in person.
It'd be great to meet you in person instead of over the phone. But so what were you talking about at that conference? Do you think, or do you know yet?
We're not 100% sure, but we'll probably talk a little bit more about the bill and the three parts of it. I mean, as we were just talking about with you, and this is based on the TEDx talk that we had the opportunity to give. So, I mean, we'll be talking about the Awareness Week, which
we spoke about earlier, as well as the other two prongs of that.
Yeah, and so that was, the first was the Awareness Week, the second was the National Concussion Strategy, and the third was the Center for Excellence in Concussion Research. So we'll talk about all three parts.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it'd certainly be great to meet you guys, and hopefully you can help me wrangle some people to be on my podcast when I'm in Toronto.
You bet.
In the conference. Yeah, so great, and thanks for is there anything else you'd like to mention about the bill or your research or what you're doing next?
Yeah. Well, we're really excited about where our work can go because this is such an important area, and it's an invisible injury. So oftentimes people suffer alone and don't always have somewhere to turn. So hopefully all of this work will end up in tangible policy, which we think is a really great vehicle for providing help where it's needed.
So as we know, the impacts of concussion can be devastating, and basically what we've done was to try to translate the research that has been going on, and including our own research, into the tangible policy to provide that comprehensive strategy that can improve outcomes and resources for Canadians with concussions, as well as their families and caregivers. And we'd also like to thank you again for having us and for all of your inspiring work on improving awareness around concussions.
Well, thank you, and thank you both, and I look forward to meeting you in Toronto. And so, yeah. So thank you so much for being on this podcast call with me, and I look forward to seeing you guys in Toronto.
Great, thanks.
Bye. Thank you again to Sandhya and Swapna for the great discussion and for their great concussion research. And thank you all for listening. As always, the music at the beginning of this podcast is by Ben Sound, www.bensound.com.